This week we're hearing from advocates of various issues on what they hope to see from the state legislature in the upcoming session. We've heard from advocates for children's issues, business concerns, and environmental topics. Tonight, the focus is on education. And for that, we welcome Marisol Garcia, president of the Arizona Education Association. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Major priority session starts next week. What do you want to see?
Funding, funding, funding.
It's still about money, isn't it?
It's almost always about money in this country, and more so in this state when it comes to keeping qualified educators in the classroom and stability for our students.
It looks like Prop 123, which expires in June. First of all, explain what Prop 123 is, why it's expiring in June, and why something's got to get done with that.
Yeah, this is a 10-year voter initiative that passed that allowed us to expand a little bit of the money from the land trust to go into public schools. We passed it 10 years ago in after a lawsuit was filed, and it was done so very, very small, very barely passed, but 10 years have passed and we need to talk about it again.
Okay, talk about it again or pass it or extend it.
Yeah,
what do you
we
think?
have to go to the ballot. It has to go to a ballot. It's going to end in June of this year, 2025. We feel a big urgency for this for the main reason is that if we don't know what our funding is going to look like in the fall, it just lends a bunch of instability to students, a workforce that doesn't know what their salary is going to look like, or even what schools are going to be open next year.
I know that the Republican legislature, they seem to want a lot, if not all of that money to go to teachers. What say you?
I think a lot of it should go to teachers, but also there's other folks that work in the buildings. There are needs that the buildings have. Each local looks a little bit different. Every district needs are very different. Salaries look different across the state. So we need some flexibility on how the districts want to use that.
If it becomes down to all teachers or we ain't going to push it over, where would you go?
The thing is a maze. So we don't. What else is part of those conversations? What other things we're going to ask for, right? It's the sausage making that we always talk about.
Do you think more money should be taken out of the state land trust? Because the governor, I think, wants to bump it up to like 8.9 or 9%.
Yeah, I mean, we've looked at some data and some research that says that we could go higher and it would not impact the long run. And, we keep waiting for these rainy days to happen, and we think they're happening right now. We have empty classrooms across the state, 2,000 at a time. Our kids only get this shot one time, and we're missing it.
State Treasurer says that kind of withdrawal would be dangerous and unsustainable.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, because when we've looked at different economic reports have showed us that it would have actually a very little minimum hit after 10 years.
Yeah. ESAs, I mean, do you expect anything at all in terms of guardrails, extra attention, more account, anything?
My hope is that that is a huge conversation that we push the majority to have, because any parent, voter, business owner knows that you have to have some accountability and transparency on any taxpayer investment. And right now we have none. We saw several states vote down voucher programs for that sole reason, is that we need to make sure that the money we have going to these families has some sort of accountability.
Yeah, when you mention that to lawmakers or just even folks around the Capitol who don't see things quite the same way as you do, how do they respond?
They kind of laugh it off, because I think there has been an inability to really listen to the voters and listen to their constituents, and more of an ear to folks that want broad policies, national policies. But this is impacting kids every single day. There's less money that can be invested in our schools.
The growing skills gap. We had business concerns on earlier that was touched on there, and some other folks touched on it as well here. And you got this ASU. We just found out this big new research facility, semiconductor and microchip fab, and one of the reasons they came to Arizona because they thought they would get qualified workers. And yet I'm hearing constantly with business concerns, we can't find people. How do you close the skills gap?
Well, I think the bottom line is that somebody who had 32 kids 6 times a day, it's impossible to reach the goals that these students need. It's impossible. We have to invest in our public schools, and that does mean we need more adults on these sites. We need more adults, smaller class sizes. We need to make sure that kids get what they need, and right now we just don't have it.
Republicans at the legislature say they want to fund students, not systems. Respond to that, please.
I have no idea what that means, because students go through systems. Systems are there to support students, and I would consider myself an 8th grade teacher part of that system. And in order for me to show up to work, we need to make sure that we're invested in.
Again, I think it goes back to paying teachers as opposed to bureaucracy.
Correct. And teachers, we agree. We want that funding to go to teacher salaries, but we also want them to go to nurses' salaries, and we also want them to go to counselor salaries and cafeteria worker salaries, because we do not work in silos. We work together.
Republicans have specifically mentioned woke politics. They mentioned CRT, radical transgender ideology, all this kind of stuff. Do they have a point, a slight point about taking politics out of the classroom?
I would love for them to take politics out of my classroom. I would love it from the very beginning. I mean, however, let's look at the very first bill that's going to be heard at the very first meeting of the House Education Committee, is to arm teachers. That is not how we bring safety into our schools. When I greet the 32 eighth graders in the morning who have possibly not had food to eat the night before, who are cold or too hot walking to my classroom, and I need them to get them focused to teach them about American history, they don't need to be worried about whether or not I have a weapon in my school.
Over the years, have you seen, obviously you haven't been at the AA that long, but as far as education concerns are talked about here, have you seen a movement, a shift to maybe more understand where that idea is coming from? Or with ESAs in particular, does it seem like the gulf is widening?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't lost a lot of students to public schools. So the same parents that have always had their kids in private schools are the ones that are now using these ESA vouchers. So the same families that had always been there. And secondarily, I mean, we have such high accountability and standards from the moment that I open my door to walk in my classroom. We are held accountable through everything we do. I don't have time to, the inference of any sort of indoctrination or quote unquote woke, you can ask very few people in the classroom if they even know what that means, because they're busy trying to teach kids how to multiply.
Before you go, do you plan on spending more time playing offense or more time playing defense?
You know, it's a balance. We have now, a federal administration that is not too fond of public schools either. And so there's going to be a lot of offense, but we also know that by organizing and working with parents that we've fought back a lot of these measures. We have a governor that has vetoed them, but we're also going to bring real stories that we have real issues that we're confronting. This is not one of them.
Marisol Garcia, again, Arizona Education Association. Good conversation. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Ted.